Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Kirsty.
And this is our podcast covering the highs, lows and realities of parenting a child with neurodiversity.
Each week we'll be sharing updates from our lives and hearing from a variety of guests about their advice and experiences.
This is Love Needs No Words. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Love Needs No Words. I'm going to start this week by reading out a message from Ashley, one of our listeners in Italy. She wanted us to know that she's been listening from day one. She hasn't got an autistic child, but she finds it really interesting and feels like a lot of what we talk about can be applied to all children. So it's super helpful. She also wanted to let us know that she has two nephews with autism and always hears us talk about looking into a crystal ball into the future, and wanted to share a success story that one of her nephews has just moved out of a SEND school where he's been for several years and will be taking his GCSEs in a mainstream school, as that is now the best setting for him, and that his mum would never have imagined that that would happen. And she listened to Lisa's episode last week about Lisa going to the football pitches and wishing her children were part of clubs and things like that. And she said her sisters always felt really sad about the fact they were never in clubs, but they both just started showing interest in football and have joined local teams. And that it's a long, winding journey and you just don't know what the future brings. So to keep our chin up. Kirsty hasn't even heard that. So how lovely is that?
What a lovely message. Oh, thank you for taking the time to write to us. Yeah, it's so lovely to hear those stories of, it gives you real hope, I think, and positivity for the future. It's just really lovely to hear. And I think you really feel like yes for those families as well, because you know, when you walked in the same path, you know, kind of the stress and some of the anxiety that parents and that families carry. So that's so lovely. Thank you for taking the time to write in and let us know that.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? I think we always just want to know what the future brings, but you just have to try and live in the moment. But hearing stories like that, it does give you hope, doesn't it?
Yeah, and even if your journey doesn't look the same, I think you just feel like yay for that family, because I think Lisa said it last week and she definitely wrote about it in her book, but she was talking about, you know, being there, just being part of the community and championing other families, other children, just being their biggest supporters as well. And you do, it's like this ginormous great village of people, children, adults, parents, families, wider family, and you're just very much part of it. And so when you hear about their success, it feels like in a little way kind of everyone's success,
a real win for all of us.
Definitely. Oh, what a lovely message. Thank you, Amy.
So nice. so nice. Thank you, Ashley. So we're recording this the week after half term. So how did it go for you, Kirst, and how was sort of the transition going back?
So half term was brilliant for both of us, I think. We don't seem to get a lot of him having to readjust to not being in school. He seems quite happy to be at home, if I'm honest. I think for everybody, it just really, there's a lot less anxiety when he's out of school, because you know, you don't have that or I don't have that fear of what's happening when I pick him up, you know, when I do the pickup, and what am I going to hear about and what's happened at school, and you know, facing other parents and this kind of thing. So we were just kind of in our own bubble. I was off work, so that was nice. Just had a couple of days actually just one-to-one time with Max as well, which is really nice, and he definitely loved, to the point where he actually said, "Isn't it nice, Mummy, when you and I just have a day together?" So that was really nice. And we went to London, which was a massive eye-opener actually, because we went to the Science Museum and we had some Pizza Express beforehand. If I haven't spoken about this on the podcast, we are huge Pizza Express fans. And so we did that, and I went with a friend, and she has a little boy same age as Max, who we've known for a long time, and it was really, really good. But I was walking around the Science Museum thinking how many families would not be able to access this during school holidays. I would say Max was okay. He did tell me he was stressed at points, so he was definitely finding it busy. I took his pushchair, which helped. I think he would have really struggled if I hadn't have taken that. That's almost like his safe space. He just, when it's getting too busy, he'll just sit in it and that. So I don't know what will happen when he's too big to go in there, but I'll cross that bridge as and when we come to it. But yeah, I was thinking this is just not accessible for so many families, and why it must be really difficult filling time during school holidays. It was really, really good. We had a lovely day. One of the other things that we did during half term was we went to a local railway centre, which is brilliant, and he really enjoys it. And it's actually brilliant for local children who have SEN. They're really, really inclusive there, and there was a lot of other children there who had various additional needs, but in only the fashion that Max could achieve. We were stood waiting for the steam train to come, and we missed the first one. It was full, so we were waiting for the next train ride. The train's pulling away from the platform, and this huge plume of smoke comes out the top of the train, which was quite dirty, to be fair, dirty smoke, and that came onto the platform. The only person on the entire platform who it affected was, of course, Max, who got it in his eye.
Oh no.
I know, and he is obviously distraught. They then had to get the paramedics to come, so he's taken to this room. He is screaming, Amy, I cannot tell you. He hates any medical intervention. So where we've had to go to the doctors, he screams. Hospital, he screams.
Yeah.
He absolutely hates it. So they needed to flush out his eye because he'd got something in his eye. This lovely paramedic was doing his best, but Matt and I were basically, it was awful. He was screaming, no, don't come. And we were having to pin him down because obviously it's really difficult because he's saying no, and you kind of want to respect that. But at the same time, if we left that in his eye, it would have been really dangerous. And I was trying to explain to him, which was totally fruitless in the moment, that sometimes I have to do these things and I don't like it, but I have to do it for your own, for your own well-being. Yeah. Anyway, we're holding him down. He's having his eye flushed. The rest of the time, obviously, his eye is stinging. So he didn't enjoy any of the rest of it. He was rubbing it. So he's gone back to school with a really, really sore eye today. It was literally almost closed up. We get home and he says, Mummy, we just shouldn't have gone to the train today. We should have just stayed at home. And I was like, well, we wouldn't have known that was going to happen. But yeah, honestly, it was just this.
That is so typical.
If it was going to happen to anyone, it was going to happen to him. Literally everyone else on the platform. I don't know if he didn't shut his eyes. I'm not sure what caused
I didn't even know that could happen. That's quite good for everyone else to know.
Yeah. So if you ever go to a steam railway and the train's pulling out and there's a big cloud of smoke, please cover your children's eyes if they're not natural blinkers. Clearly some children don't blink.
Oh my word.
So yeah, unfortunately that happened. It was a perfect example of how you have this ideal idea of what that day is going to look like. Max loves trains. He loves the railway centre. He'd got a little train in the gift shop before we'd gone to go and get on the train. He was having a lovely time, and then this happens, and you just think that now literally that's it for the rest. That's it.
You won't be going to a railway ever again.
We probably we're going to have to wait a little while until the trauma has left him. Bless him. It was like, oh, you love this normally. Such a shame. But anyway, I don't know if maybe I did too much. He was saying at the weekend, and this is the first time he said this, can we just spend time indoors? Can we just do stuff at home? Can we not go out? Now, he's never really said that before. He's always been a child that we've had to get out of the house. Yeah. Spending too much time indoors has always kind of left him bored, I think, really. So change of scenery has always been good. But I don't know whether there's a bit of a shift in him wanting just a bit of downtime and recognising that home's calmer and quieter. I'm not sure.
Also, he might have been processing the fact he was going back next week, and he just wanted to just zone out for a few days.
He was quite he was quite busy over the weekend, in the sense that he was like flitting from thing to thing. He couldn't focus on anything, he couldn't concentrate, and we had family staying, so there's probably an element of that, because it's obviously busier in the house as well. And this morning going back to school was okay. I wouldn't say he was jumping for joy, but he went in all right. So we'll just have to see what this week brings, really, in terms of how he settles back in. But we had a good half term. It was nice.
Oh, good.
Yeah, really nice. How was yours?
Yeah, similar actually. I think they were just so ready, weren't they? And I can see why there is regular breaks for teachers and for the children, because I think they'd both got to a point where they were just exhausted. But yeah, I took a morning off and we went to the park, and there's a little skate park next to it, and me and Alex, there was no one on it, but me and Alex were sort of sliding down the little skate ramps, and this old man walked past this dog, and I was like, I don't know, he's having more fun. He said, well, I could hear you from all the way over there. I was like, that is brilliant. But yeah, just being like a big kid with him and sort of getting into his world and just thinking, there's no one on here, let's just go for it. And this
Yeah.
can be a slide if you want it to be. I had a really nice morning with him, and then John was off the rest of the week, which was nice. And they went to a Ascend trampoline session, which John said was brilliant. It was so quiet. And then a swimming session really early in the morning, which there was nobody there for. So it was actually nice to find things to go and do where it was quiet, because as you know, as you mentioned with the museum, everywhere's so loud and overwhelming.
So overwhelming.
Yeah, during
absolutely.
the school holidays. And Kirsty and I are also part of a Send Mum group, and they were posting places to go and visit,
really
weren't they? It was really helpful.
Yeah. It's really useful actually, because there's things that you don't come across or you don't think about. So that, one of the definite benefits of sharing information like that. On the note of swimming, actually, Matt started one-to-one swimming classes during half term. Really successful, so much better than classes that we've had before, and very costly, but I do recognise that eye-wateringly expensive to do it, but I'm conscious to get him able to swim, because he's like moth to a flame when it comes to water. So, and he loves it as well. Another thing, he just really loves being in the water, but definitely needs that one-to-one class. He went 3 times. First time I got in with him, and the swimming school were brilliant, because all the other swim schools that I've inquired with don't let you in the pool. So for Max, it's very much when it's the first time going somewhere, he needs that comfort and reassurance. And so I got in the first day, I was in there, didn't really have to do very much. The lady was brilliant with him. And then the second time I went with my swimming costume on, showed him that I had my swimming costume on, said, if you need me to come in, I can. But he said, I can do it by myself. So he went in on his own. I could tell he was nervous, but he went in on his own. And then the third one, he didn't ask. So yeah, we're going to keep that going. But that was, definitely recognised that, we've tried lessons. As much as I would like for him to join lessons, in terms of they are a lot more cost effective, it's just not going to work for the short term. I think he will get to the point where he will be able to join a class, but at the moment, because he can get a little bit silly sometimes depending on what mood he's in. So the first 2 lessons he listened really well. The third one, I don't know if it was he was more confident or he was a bit thrown, because the instructor had a hat on, had her swimming hat on, and he looked at her, he looked at me, and we all kind of clocked, and the lovely lady was like, oh no, it's still me, but I'm just wearing a swimming cap because I'm going out after this lesson.
But even something like that,
he was all right to go in, but I think it threw him off a little bit. He was fine, he was safe, but he just wasn't listening. He wasn't able to concentrate on the instructions she was giving him as much as the other 2 classes. It's so fascinating to watch how just a small change, he can cope, but it does alter his behaviour.
And amazing hearing that even just the hat she was wearing was slightly different. That can throw them completely, because it's not how it's been previously.
Yeah, and it wasn't. He didn't he didn't go into a full-on meltdown or refuse to go in, but obviously he was thinking,
threw him a little bit.
Different. But it was really good, and he definitely has been enjoying them. So now we've got to keep it going, really.
Yeah, I think that's the same with us. If you find something that they love, because Alex's is swimming and trampolining, we haven't done one-to-one because I don't think we could afford it at the moment, but we do take them swimming regularly, the 2 of them, and even that is cheaper for us. But also you can see the confidence coming, because the more you do something, the more it becomes sort of routined, and then they just get this confidence that with Alex now, I think just about could get him out of armbands, and for him to just slowly but surely, be able to swim, because for me that would be amazing if he could do that. And trampolining's obviously his other thing, so John and him go regularly. But yeah, when you find something they love, you can hyper focus on getting them really good at it.
100%, and they get really confident. This is what it's like with his gym class. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but he does a weekly Sen gym class. There's 5 other children that are in the group with him, and he is really comfortable with the instructor. She's brilliant. Well, both of them are brilliant actually, and it's just his thing now. And is he going to be Max Whitlock? Who knows? But but actually it doesn't matter. It's just confidence building in a different way, him going and joining in and not having me there all of the time. If that's possible for him, then I want to kind of encourage that where he's comfortable, because it's great for his confidence.
Of course it
And
is.
he enjoys it, and it's good fun. So
That's brilliant.
trying to find
Brilliant.
those things, isn't it? Find what they enjoy as well, because I guess it's like with any child, going back to what Ashley was saying when she messaged in earlier, actually a lot of what we talk about is relevant to all children. And it's just giving them the opportunities to find what makes them tick, isn't it?
Yeah, and also there's a lot of children that aren't very confident, and then as they get older they get more confident, and they'll go to classes on their own, and there'll be a time in your life where you never thought they would go to things like that without you there. So like you say, it can be applied to all children. But I was so anxious about Alex's return to school this morning after our absolute Christmas return nightmare. So we've been talking a lot about going back to school the last few days, and I was showing him his uniform last night, and then a lot of reading of social stories this time round in the hope that he understood that he was going back. And then John said, let me take him, because he's less anxious than me, and also he just said, I think how he'll react will be different. But he said they got to the first gate, and then he said ready, steady, go, ran to the next gate, and then he said he ran off and didn't look back. So he rang me straight away, and I was like, oh, I'm so relieved, because that was so traumatic after Christmas. I just thought, if every return to school is going to be like that, it's going to be awful. But I just think he wasn't prepared enough at Christmas. We weren't talking about it enough, and also suddenly realised
longer break as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a longer break. Christmas, like you say, it was a different time. But I also suddenly thought that we always go to Nanny and Granddad's on a Sunday, and then he goes back to school on a Monday, and we didn't do that at Christmas. So I wonder if again it's that whole it's the routine.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen that way, so it sort of threw him a little bit. But we did go to Nanny and Granddad's.
Social stories are brilliant as well. They definitely I don't know how they work. I'd love to know the ins and outs of how it resonates, but they always seem to work quite well with us as well. And there obviously must be some logic behind it, because for them to be used in the first place. I know Max is very visual, even in how he learns. He definitely is a very visual learner, but
Alex is.
Really relates to it. He did something that absolutely astonished us in the last few weeks. I can't remember when it was. I might have even mentioned it before, but he has a very good memory, and we have these foam letters that go in the bath, and obviously they're all different colours and stuff. And I sort of got to the point where if I couldn't find the right letter that he was asking for, I'd ask him, what colour is the letter? And he'd tell me, and I was like, how many of these letters does he know the colour for? Literally 26. Went through the entire alphabet, and he could tell me what colour that letter was.
That is incredible, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've always known he's had a good memory, but we were so impressed.
Their brains, how they work, because we've got cards 1 to 20, and I know he knows 1 to 10, but 13 to 20 he was handing it to me based on what the picture was. So he'd turn it over, I'd say 13, he'd remember, Ladybirds is 13, and give it to me. And even that, you think, how have you remembered that?
I know, it's amazing.
Incredible. Wish I had that brain.
I mean, I don't know. I don't personally, I don't think I've ever had a memory like that. And if I did have a memory like that, it's now too full. My brain is too full of all the everydays to be able to remember the colour of 26 letters. But I don't think I would ever remember.
So helpful, isn't it? Yeah. On a positive story note, Alex has started doing Makaton. So he's doing please, thank you, and more. I've been trying to get him to do it, since he was tiny, because everyone was saying it'd be so helpful if he knew Makaton, and I'm like, it would, but I can only do so much. He's got to be able to process the sign and then sign it back, and it just was something we couldn't get him to do, and it wasn't for the want of trying. And suddenly, out of nowhere, he's learnt please and thank you. So everything, sometimes I think one of them is longer than the other one. I think please is shorter and thank you's longer. But as long as he's symboling it, then that to me is fabulous. And he sometimes does it off the side of his cheek if he's in a rush or something. But I'm like, that's great. You've got the hang of just being out and about, just being able to say to him, say thank you, and just him being able to sign is such a massive accomplishment for us. And then we started doing more during half term. and just seeing him sign that if he wants to, play on the trampoline again or something, it's just so helpful for him and us. So yeah, that's been really, really good news for half term.
That's a great news story. Where did you find the Macathon? Did you did you buy a book or did you find it online? How did you
I
come
did a
across
course
it?
actually. So it was when he was quite young. I thought I'm going to do a course on it, and I've still got the book. And at the time I thought, I don't know why I'm doing this, because he's not going to pick a lot of it up. But, even a lot of CBBS and things like that, they do a lot of Macathon during the episodes and things. So even just getting the basic ones off there, please, thank you, more. If you can just keep doing it with them. As I say, I never thought he would pick it up, but he just out of nowhere seems to have started doing it. And also I mentioned him singing along to Frozen, which was the last word of most of the songs, but he's recently been saying the last word of sentences. So
copying. Is that an echolalia thing?
Yes, it's the start of echolalia, which is amazing for us. And just even seeing him attempt to say words, even if it's not every day, but he's copying the words that they're saying on screen. And hi and bye, he's just started doing over half term as well. Not every time, but also it's really hard not to go mental, because
how do you feel about it?
It's just really exciting. I think there's a part of you that's always a bit like, oh, I hope doesn't regress again and we don't hear those words. I mean, his speech and language therapist said to us, that should just carry on now, should be something that evolves, but also might depend on what situation he's in, what environment he's in. I don't think they're hearing it as much at school, but when he's at home and we're getting that one-on-one time with him, we're both noticing it. And usually it would be me that would be like, oh, did you hear that word? And John was like, definitely wasn't. Or he'd say, I think you heard it, but he didn't quite say it. But for John to be saying he's saying more now is lovely, because, it's not just me hoping that sounded like a word. It's actually a word. So, and then a weird thing he's been doing, which I thought I'd bring up, because I don't know if anyone listening has this, and you might even have had it with Max at some point. But if people leave, so he's always found people leaving quite difficult. We've had friends round and things like that. But also, as his understanding is getting better, Daddy will leave to go to work in an evening, and he'll explain to Alex he's leaving and he'll go. Now, in the past, it wouldn't have really fazed him. He would have been watching something, might not have even realised that he was going, where now he's very aware when people are going. So he will hide and close the door. So it could be in any room, and he'll close the door, open it and slam it again. And it's really triggering for us, because obviously if a door's opening and slamming and you've got glass doors and things, it's really quite hard. But yeah, it's basically him, we think, trying to tell us that he's not happy with the situation. Or why is Daddy going? I don't understand. So yeah, I just wondered if anyone else is going through this. And again, it might just be a little phase that we're going through. So part of me just kind of lets him have his moment, a bit like you would with a meltdown, and then I'll go in and say, Daddy will be back in the morning, and then I'll distract him with something else. But I guess it's just a way of him expressing his emotions, isn't it? Which also is a positive thing, because he wouldn't have even known a year ago if Daddy was there or not.
Yeah, which is obviously huge in terms of his development. We haven't had that exact situation. Max does find people leaving can be difficult, but what he'll do is someone will say, they'll say bye, we'll say, oh, so and so's going, and he'll almost ignore. We'll say, are you going to say goodbye? He won't do it until they've almost left out of the front door sometimes, and then he'll run really upset that he hasn't said goodbye, or he hasn't given them a cuddle or whatever. And it's almost, I don't know, is it the fear that they're going, not knowing how to process that? Is it that it takes a little bit more time I'm not sure, but that happens almost every time someone leaves, and he gets increasingly upset, which is difficult. He seems to be finding it harder when we leave to go somewhere. I went to London on Saturday. He came to drop me off at the train station, which normally he loves, it was actually a real show of how you can see that his mind is starting to understand more things, and the anxiety he has is kind of growing. So he was concerned that I was going to miss the train. I was trying to say to him I had 10 minutes before the train was going so I could say goodbye, but he was so stressed that I was going to miss the train. He was like, go mummy, go mummy, go mummy, get on the train, go. Because and then I sort of sat there for 10 minutes literally waving out the window at them because they were sat on the bench waiting for me to go. But it's interesting how he obviously doesn't understand the concept of time. So he was stressed that I was going to miss the train. He obviously recognizing that missing the train isn't a good thing, or he doesn't perceive it as a good thing. So he was anxious of me getting on the train. And then once he'd got back in the car with Matt, he was very, very upset that I'd gone, even though he knew where I was going. I go to London a lot because I work in London, so it's not a new thing that I've gone to get on the train, but maybe it's new that I go at the weekend, and it's new that Daddy's there when I go off to work and those kinds of things. So it was just a different situation. But it was really fascinating to see how these things are just changing and evolving. That wouldn't have been a thing in the kind of same ilk that you were talking about before with Alex. It just wouldn't have been a thing before. He would have been delighted because he was at the train station, but he wouldn't have necessarily resonated that I was going off on the train.
I think you're right. I think it's their understanding getting
and I
better.
think their understanding getting better, them understanding some concepts but not understanding enough that it kind of helps them manage the things that are stressing them out.
Makes sense, doesn't it? A lot of this episode we also wanted to dedicate to the stress I've had with the council last week, as there are so many of you going through this at the moment, and I know you will relate, so strap in, Kirst. So as you know, I'm in the process of trying to get Alex a place at a special needs school, as I've discovered in previous weeks that next year he won't be able to access the mainstream approach to teaching. But I want to add, it's not the fault of mainstream schools. This just needs to come from higher, doesn't it? And we've talked about it, haven't we, Kirst? That needs to be more funding, more courses for teachers, and more support across the board as children with additional needs are going to carry on going to mainstream schools as the lists for special needs schools get longer. That's just the way it's going to be. So John and I have been visiting a few special needs schools over the last few weeks, and I talked about it briefly even on Lisa's episode, that I'm sure, like a lot of you, will be quite overwhelmed when you look around the schools, because it's hard to process that your child won't be at mainstream school, won't be at the same school as their sibling, and also just at school that you didn't envisage them going to. But what these schools do are incredible, by the way. But this particular school that we went to see oozed the support, the love, the dedication that I've been looking for, and also demonstrate that they would push Alex to his full potential, because that's something I've been a bit worried about, that he won't be pushed, because I know he's clever, he just needs to be in the right environment. So we've got a school in mind now, and we've got a couple more to see, but we're aiming to name it in May. But I hadn't heard back about his amended EHCP, something you can relate to, Kirsty.
Story of my life at the moment as well.
And the panel's decision. So this was 4 weeks after we sent both off. Anyway, Monday comes and my phone rings, as many of you would have experienced the call from the council or email, quite blasé and unemotional, to say that Alex hadn't been considered suitable at this time for a special needs school. So I was like, oh, okay, why is that? Well, they think he's doing really well and on the right path. So I said, well, have you read his EHCP? She said, I haven't looked through the amendments yet, but they have, and they've made this decision. I said, well, there's a lot of sensory issues, and myself and the school were very clear that those sensory issues could be really dangerous and have damaging effects. She said, yes, but we need more evidence. And it just annoys me, because it just feels like, to me, until your child is on its knees, unable to attend school, or behaving in a way, behaving in a way that brings the teachers to their knees, they just use this narrative that he's doing well. Well, how do you know? Because what bothers me the most is there's a group of people making this decision on his future that has never met him or visited the school. And it's so frustrating. And you think, how can you make that decision on him when you've not actually seen any of these things in process? So I felt very frustrated, obviously, and And, you know, they don't understand the benefit of a special needs school would have on Alex, especially because his limited speech, being in an environment right now that could push all of that, it could change his life. And it's just so frustrating.
I think they probably know that. I think they probably do know it. I think they just don't have the resources. This is what's my biggest frustration. And it time and time again, I find when I speak to people or I'm thinking about our own situation, it comes down to resources and just not having enough. And there's a lot of children who would thrive in specialist provision, and there's a lot of children who would be able to thrive in mainstream with the right support. Those children aren't getting the right support, and then you've got other children who should be in a specialist provision because that's the best environment for them, and that is going to be the place that allows them to come out of their shell, that allows them to be in a space where they feel safe and can access the curriculum and learn, which is exactly what you want for Alex, because there is obviously an element of pushing him, but also if he's in the right space, he will learn. He will learn because he's happy and he's contented, and he will find the things that he enjoys and he'll do it in his own way. But if you're in a kind of fight or flight environment, which many children are in school, then you can't, your head's not in the right space to learn.
Yeah.
I resonated so much with Lisa's book because I have a child who would probably be or is coping in mainstream, but is just about coping, and there's so many things that we're having to deal with that if he had more support at certain times of the day, I don't believe we'd be dealing with and he would be dealing with.
Yeah, it's so frustrating,
it's
isn't
unbelievably frustrating, disappointing, heartbreaking in many ways to be having to fight for what your child, for just the same access to an education that every other parent wants for their child, expects for their child.
Yeah, and I know they've got massive lists. I mean, she said she had 700 on her caseload, which if true, 700. That is awful. But in that moment, all you care about is your child and wanting the best for them. And it's not like I want to be going around. I mean, we've had look around 10 special needs schools. I want to make sure that the special needs school's the right school for him as well. But it's exhausting. We look around loads for his school currently, and now we're having to do it again. We're not doing it for fun. And I wouldn't be putting this down if I didn't think it was the right place for him. So I basically just said, look, what do you need? What evidence do they need? I want you to bullet point exactly what they need. So she's done that and I've put it in place. Does mean that I've had to pay private for 2 things because I can't get it on the NHS. I've tried 4 times, including occupational therapy. And that's frustrating because we don't have the funds to do that, but we just have to, because if I don't, that I'm going to get the same thing next time.
And how many children are missing out because they don't have access to that?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what really breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's just awful. So that's where we are. So I'll keep you updated with it. We'll go back to panel in May. And I just won't give up until he gets selected for the school that we would like him to go to. But, it's just so frustrating. And like you say, heartbreaking, actually, that he could end up in this school, which isn't quite right for him for, goodness knows how long, if I'm going to be constantly battling this, but it's just the way it goes, isn't it, unfortunately. Anyway, in positive news, he was on a really low level band for funding, which I didn't know about. So that will mean they'll be able to get another member of staff for that classroom. Brilliant. Which I'm sure they'll be relieved about. Yeah, and we'll help all the children in that classroom, not just Alex, obviously.
But this is also the thing, and you're so right, actually, to highlight that, because it's a really important point, isn't it? And that's the conversation I've had with quite a few parents when I've been talking about Max and different situations, that actually my child not having what they need actually does impact your children in school as well. And they're probably aware of that. If you've got a child that's being disruptive or there's other issues within the classroom, that's not good for any of the children that are in there.
Yeah,
it's not helping anyone. And the teachers must just be pulling their hair out a lot of the time, because they must feel to a certain degree how we feel, that they want more support, they want more help.
Yeah, it's easy to say the school should be prepared, but that takes funding, that takes time, that takes staffing. It's a bit of a crazy world out there for Sen at the moment, but I just hope that it gets better. I hope with all this raising awareness that people start to sit up and listen. You can only but hope.
you can only but hope, and you can only keep just fighting for what your child needs, like you were saying. Well, best of luck with it. I'm currently in an argument with the local authority as well, because we had Max's EHCP review back in October and have received absolutely nothing back from it. We're having an emergency review, which has been called by myself to school this week, and are going to have to do it based on a draft because we've not had it back, which is then going to cause additional problems later down the line. So I feel you in a fight with the local authority. Oh, you need to speak to this person. Oh, no, sorry, actually, it's not that person. That person's now this person. And actually, no, they don't deal with that. And Max is in the transition between early years and Key Stage 1. So there seems to be confusion around that. Yeah, it's just incredibly, you just want to scream sometimes. You just want to think, hang on a minute, this is just...
Why is this so hard? Yeah.
So, why is this so difficult? Under-resourced, too many. And their caseload, 700, that's just wild.
Yeah, well, if anyone from the local authority or councils want to come and talk to us, we'd happily oblige, because it'd be nice to hear it from their side of you, like what is going on, like why is this such a fight?
Stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine. And with that many children on your caseload, it's not easy, is it? I completely appreciate that. But I think for me, it's the being ignored, like the constant emails, the constant phone calls. Oh, it's nothing worse. I think worse than being like ignored from even like a friend, if you've waited like a week, like, come on, where are you? Are you all right? Like, and then
you've been ghosted by the local authority.
I've been ghosted.
We've been ghosted.
We've been ghosted. Oh, so frustrating. But yeah, it's just a constant fight, isn't it? So yeah, the crazy world of Sen continues, but that's why we wanted to do this podcast in the first place, because we get it. We know exactly what you're going through and all the frustrations that you're having to deal with.
Yes, absolutely.
But anyway, on that note, we've got some brilliant guests coming up. We've got an occupational therapist coming on. We've got someone talking about forest schools. We've got Blue Bee, who create their own Sen clothing, and Neurofit Dad, which would be lovely to hear it from a dad's perspective as well, and a wellness coach to speak out to all of us mums that actually could do with just a little bit of Zen time ourselves, I think.
Agreed. I definitely could do with a little bit of Zen time.
So yeah, lots of brilliant guests coming up, which is good.
And we're still working on getting Matt and John on at some point, so maybe a little bit of pressure.
Alex and Max's dads, we're trying to get them to come on, yeah. Listen, I hope the week after half term goes really well for you and for Max, and you don't have lots of meltdowns and everything goes smoothly. That's what we pray for.
We pray for that. Happy return to school for everybody who's got children going back to school this week, and we'll catch up with you soon. Bye.
Yes, thanks to all of you. Bye.